Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Johnna. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Yeah, it's been lovely. I wish we'd chat more often instead of just waiting for Celiac Awareness Month. I think it's just fun to do. I like to keep in touch with everybody.
I think so too. It's always good. Good to talk with gluten-free friends.
For sure. So tonight we were going to talk about, well, first of all, I'll introduce you. This is Johnna from In Johnna's Kitchen. She's a vegetarian celiac, and she's amazing in the kitchen, has written a cookbook, and it has various different, I guess, fingers and all kinds of different um, communities, really. I mean, she's in the entertainment industry, she's a cook, she's this, that, and everything else. And I'm just really pleased to be able to chat with you.
Oh, thank you.
So tonight we were going to talk about the dietary, I can't remember the word that we used, but different types of diets, like and which ones are necessary, non-necessary, the differences between them.
Right.
So being a vegetarian, you would know a lot about that area. And I mean, you have knowledge of celiac as well. So
Right.
I think that a lot of people, one thing in the community I've noticed is that there's a lot of, not in the community, but outside of the community, actually, these people feel that gluten-free means vegan. And
Yes.
yeah, I don't know where that came from, where
I
it
don't
originated
know
from.
either. So many times in restaurants, I'm offered a vegan menu when I ask for the gluten-free menu. Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from at all.
Oh, it'd be interesting to find out,
Mm.
though.
Yeah.
but but yeah, so I don't know if you want to just tell us about. I mean, what do you feel is an issue, like when it comes to the dietary restrictions? Like,
Mm. Yeah. So, and I mean, I will say that I was vegetarian long before I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So I had lived with a dietary choice for a very long time. In fact, my dietary choice very early on, when I was a teenager, a gastroenterologist who had the opportunity to diagnose me with celiac disease did not, and said things like, you would probably just benefit from eating a wider variety of foods and enzymes this and nutrients that, and could have caught celiac disease then instead of it continuing for another 20 years. Yeah, the road to diagnosis is long for a lot of
yes.
us, but I will say that there were many times when my dietary choice was um, something that would come up like, oh, can't you just pick the bacon off of that? Or, um, oftentimes like, we'll just, can't you just pull the chicken out of that salad? Or, all sorts of things like that. And uh, how I handled that, I think when I was diagnosed with celiac, I thought, oh, well, this will be taken more seriously. But I was really surprised to find out that it is kind of handled by many people as though it is just a choice, not
Right.
necessary. Things like, can't you just take the croutons off of that
Yes.
salad? Or, I'm very much the same way. So it is, and maybe that's because it's a fad diet as well.
Yeah.
Gluten-free can be a fad diet for some. So it's that crossroads of something that's medically necessary and something that is a choice. So I think that I don't want to say that people overall are just treating it as though it's a choice, especially when they're somebody who's feeding us at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I,
I think that people are desensitized to it also, like
yeah.
because of the fat diet part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the low carb lifestyle, the paleo, the keto. And don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against those specific diets. That is a
Mm-hmm.
person's choice. But I think that it's really put a bad spin on people
Mm-hmm.
who just need that gluten-free diet for
Right.
medical reasons. I'm just going to quickly pop over here. Melissa and Tara, hi. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Hi.
But
Yeah, and I do think that that's true, that there are people who see great health benefit from many dietary choices.
mhm,
And I'll say, in my circle of friends, two friends with MS, one who has seen great dietary impact from the paleo diet, and
mhm.
another who has seen great impact from a raw vegan diet.
Oh
So, I
wow,
mean, two very opposite ends of
no
the
kidding.
spectrum in many ways. And they're both eating what you could consider a fad diet, but it's benefiting their health. So, I don't want
Mhm.
to ever be dismissive of
Right.
that as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I mean, going back to what you were saying about people telling you to just pick the chicken out or,
Yeah.
the bacon off, it might be a choice to be
Mm,
vegetarian, but I know people who will literally get sick from
right.
eating meat products because of the mental harm that it causes them to know that they're eating an
Mhm.
animal. And
Right.
and some people eat vegetarian for health reasons, some eat it
Mhm.
for, the animals. And I just think that there's this desensitization where people don't want to recognize that it isn't just choice, you know?
Right.
That's not a
Right.
choice to me. So,
I think that that became really, really clear to me when traveling in the Middle East
mm,
with people who have very strict religious diets,
right.
something that I'm not around a lot in the US. But the level of care for a diet that there isn't a medical necessity for, but how well it was cared for. I found in those areas that my medically necessary diet was also treated with great care.
See,
Um,
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
which
that's
which was
great.
interesting to see. There are some dietary choices that are of someone's faith or of someone's
Mhm.
heritage, and I mean, choice may even be a misnomer at that point.
But I guess the important thing is that they should all be treated with the same
It's really
respect.
true. It's really,
Yeah,
really true.
yeah,
It's
and
always my hope that people who are working in professions where they're feeding us or, caring for our diet in some way are there because that's really what their passion is.
right. It's gonna quickly, Tara just mentioned here, my daughter is gluten-free and dairy-free, and my son was
Mm.
just diagnosed with a severe tree nut allergy. It is really challenging. I bet,
Yeah.
considering even the gluten-free and dairy-free is tough, I
Mhm.
find. I know a lot of people who eat that way, but
Mhm.
finding a suitable dairy-free option, like, or not option, but substitute is hard.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Agreed, and I think, when being dairy-free and also having to eliminate tree nuts can be a little bit of a challenge, so,
oh, yes.
I see you, Tara, that is a tricky combination, and, just so many, dairy substitutes, are tree nut-based, and,
Mhm.
unfortunately, now as we're seeing some of them move away from being tree nut-based, they're moving towards oats, which, is also, very challenging for those of us
Very
who eat
problematic.
gluten. So, um, yeah, it's
Are
hard.
are cashews tree nuts? I really don't know. Are they tree nuts?
Um,
Or
technically,
are they? I don't
yes,
know, like, I'm actually asking.
I
I
think
really
I think that they're technically considered a tree nut.
right, okay. 'Cause I know I have a friend that, her son is, I'm not sure that he has a full-on allergy, but
Mhm.
I know that he has to avoid peanuts.
Yeah.
Um, so but, he can eat cashews, I think, or maybe that's the other boy that can eat cashews. It's too confusing. They have a
So
lot of
yeah,
food
peanut and
sensitivities.
tree nut, two different things, um, and, and coconut technically has to be labeled as a tree nut, and I
Really?
don't know if you and I don't know if you have been anywhere that's had a, like a sign on the door that will say, "We're a nut-free facility, however, we use coconut."
Right.
So again, just food labeling, and I don't know, that may be different for you in Canada than for here. So cashews, interestingly enough, look different than most nuts in how they're harvested. They have an
Yes.
edible kind of a fruit around the outside of them. And I think that may be where it becomes confusing. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Have you ever tasted that fruit on the outside?
no, I actually just probably in maybe the last 5 years realized how they grew, that they were just
Hmm.
this little nut in the middle of this fruit.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
really? Can you
Yeah. It's
imagine
really
how many fruit?
fascinating.
Yeah, like how many fruit do they have to harvest to get that bag of cashews?
Yeah. I saw the fruit and the cashew, the whole thing in a farmer's market in Honduras. And I had no idea what it was. And someone that I was with was like, that's cashews. And I was like, no, that's not what a cashew looks like. That was, yeah, there was cashew in there.
And is the I know this is kind of off topic, but I had read that the cashew itself, if it's not processed properly, could be poisonous.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Like once it's out of the fruit, the cashew itself,
Hmm.
if it's not dried and roasted or something or other, that it is not edible. I could be
Well, I
wrong.
think we have lots of cashew research to do,
I
Michelle.
think so. I need to look into this because all these things, the brain doesn't work as well as it used to. So there's a lot of blanks. So I might have looked it up before and maybe forgotten, or I don't know. But
Do you think before being gluten free that we would have had this interest in ingredients, though? I mean,
well,
I for sure didn't.
I'm. Mm, I don't think that I would have gone as in depth as I do now. But
Right.
I've always had this passion for cooking and
Same.
learning to cook um, meals from different cultures. I've
Mhm.
always been fascinated by East Indian food and
Mhm.
Asian food in general, any kind of Asian food. So, like, just everything. And so, but I don't think that I would have gone into learning as much about the things because I would have stuck with the stuff that was mainstream. I didn't
Right.
have to learn about, like injera, for instance. Um,
Right?
I actually attempted to make it, failed miserably, but I attempted it. But I would never have really thought to try it because I would have gone with whatever else was available that was easy, right? So,
Right.
but yeah, I think
I had
honestly,
eaten injera many times before, and for those that don't know, we're talking about the
right.
Ethiopian flatbread that's made with teff, and it is fermented teff. So if you think about it, it's sort of like a sourdough fermentation.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's like served with Dora what, I think. Is it
right.
Dora what?
It's served with all Ethiopian food that
Right,
I've had, so it's used
bread
instead
it.
of a utensil, right?
Right,
Uh,
yeah.
um, and so I think if we were going to cook Ethiopian food at home, that I probably would have gone to my favorite Ethiopian restaurant and just bought injera, which is a possibility there. You
Yeah.
know, I don't think I would have put as much thought into it. I certainly didn't know about teff as a crop. I didn't know that teff is being grown in my area.
Oh,
Like
really?
that's not, it is. It's being used for agricultural roughage though. So it's
Oh,
not being harvested for the seeds, which is the part that we use in food. So
right.
yeah, but it's fascinating. I had no idea. And I do feel like I've learned a whole lot more about many other cultures' foods. And
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
fascinating how many
Flowers and
other cultures have food that's naturally gluten free.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and going back to vegetarianism, there's a lot
Hmm.
of gluten-free vegetarian
So
options.
true. So
So
true. Yeah.
and that's something I think that gets overlooked a lot as well. Because I've heard, oh, you're vegetarian and gluten free? What can you
Hmm.
eat? You know,
Right. And I
and
will
it's,
say that in the beginning, that was difficult because I think it was eating a pretty standard American diet,
mm,
and every place that someone would use meat, I was using a meat replacement, and so many of the meat replacements are vital wheat gluten based. So all of that, like I went to the grocery store and a bookstore the day I was diagnosed, and the grocery store was a little bit overwhelming because so many of the vegetarian and vegan replacement or alternatives tend to be gluten based. For a while, we saw some great progress in that direction where there were things that were plant based and gluten free. And I was so hopeful. I mean, we're seeing such a big trend right now in plant based eating. And I was
Yes.
hopeful that we would start seeing more gluten free options. But as the dietary fads go, there's a little bit of slipping away from gluten free and more toward plant based. So
Yeah.
lots of the new options just aren't options.
No, and I've actually up here, we've found the Augie Foods brand, and I
Hmm.
actually posted about them recently,
Yeah, I've noticed your post.
and they're great. Like
Yes.
their vegan pizzas, they use the Beyond Meat product, which is
Hmm.
gluten free, and it
Yep.
is fantastic. Like just fantastic. They make these calzones, these mini calzones. You would
Mm,
never know that they were vegan, and they've got a cauliflower crust on them also. Like
wow.
you wouldn't know they were vegan. I gave it to my husband, and he's like, "This is really good." And he's not a
Yeah.
vegetable guy, right? He needs to have meat at every meal, And so, yeah, I'm just really shocked by them. And there's also another brand up here that's called Light Life. Um,
Hmm.
Not all of their stuff is gluten free, but they do have gluten free options as well that are made in a gluten free facility. And so but the old standbys like Ives, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
We can't buy any of their stuff. And
Right.
my husband used to make this fantastic vegetarian lasagna using the Ives meat crumbles, right?
Hmm.
And soon as I found out I was celiac, it's like, well, that's off the
Yeah.
table. But now it's not because I can use the Beyond Meat crumbles.
Right. Right. Well,
But
we use those on occasion as well.
yeah,
So,
they're
um,
nice. It's a nice change, right? Uh,
yeah,
and nobody notices the difference when I use them. So,
we eat a lot of tofu here and
mhm.
tempeh, which
Mm,
have to be cautious in which tempeh you
yes.
buy because it can have gluten containing grains in it. But we use a lot of tempeh and just a few meat replacement items. I'm conscious with the cost of those, and it can add up quickly. Um, but when I say that, meat eaters will point out to me that even the meat alternatives tend to be less than if I was
They are.
purchasing meat. So
Yeah, it's
it's probably
really,
just that I'm not accustomed to what the price of buying meat would be.
yeah, it's not, it's just, it's gotten so bad to the point where I don't sit down and go, oh, I'd like to have this week for a meal plan. No, I look at what meat is on sale in the flyer,
Hmm.
and if I can get ground meat for $3.50 a pound, we're having a lot of ground beef that
Yeah.
week, So because Sam and I can eat vegetarian every meal, we don't
Hmm.
mind, but Mike likes his meat, so.
I even learned about vegetarian things from you. I didn't know about the tofu puffs.
Oh, they're
I'd
my
not, I
favorite.
had not seen those before. So,
We love them so much, so much. We did that one. I posted about that one, and then we've had it twice now. The other one was the teriyaki tofu puffs on brown
mhm.
rice. Oh, so good, so good. So yeah, we love those. They're just a
I
nice
hear,
alternative,
yeah, I agree. I hear often from people that say they don't like tofu. And I think that when people say that, they just haven't had it prepared quite right yet.
That's
So,
right. That's what I think too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really versatile and it's such a flavor sponge. So just
Right. Yeah.
absorbs, whatever flavor you put with it. We did
That's right.
recently try pum fu. Have you tried that one yet? It's
I don't think I've heard
tofu
of that.
style pumpkin seeds. So it's made from pumpkin seeds. So it's a tofu alternative for those who don't tolerate soy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it was pricey. It was about
Right.
double the price of tofu, and the package was not as large as tofu. But I think there was a like a chorizo variety and maybe a couple of different flavor options. I found it at Sprouts,
Hmm. I don't think we have a Sprouts up here, but we've got
or
there's some, I
I
think.
may have found it at Natural Grocers, one or the other.
Well, we've got quite a few health food stores in our area. So I imagine that actually my mother-in-law or stepmother has a health food store as well. She might even carry it.
That's
So
handy.
mhm. It's handy. But yeah, so there's definitely there seems to be more options coming out depending on where you live. Like I mean, up here I'm seeing more vegetarian gluten-free options than there was prior, but that's because the new businesses are coming out. You know, we
Hmm.
don't have to rely on the old ones anymore. They're
Yeah.
being surpassed by the new people. So I don't know. Hopefully you get more down there too. Although, like you said, it's not, you don't necessarily need to have them either, right? Like
Mm-mm.
you're quite happy with,
Yeah, that was probably the one thing that would have been most helpful to know when I had to go gluten free was just to not immediately start looking for a direct replacement of
yeah.
everything, and that was how I had approached vegetarianism. Like, I we were still eating burgers or burger crumbles, or if it was
Mhm.
spaghetti or lasagna, it had some sort of a burger kind of thing in it. And I wish I would have known that about going gluten free, that I didn't need to find the exact things that I had been eating before. That it
Right.
was such a great opportunity to learn about other foods that I'd never cooked before.
Mhm.
Um, and I eat a wider variety of food than I ever have before in my
Oh,
life.
yes, for sure. That's one
Yeah.
thing I've noticed too since, I mean, I've always been fairly adventurous, I guess, with my food since leaving the house, you know, leaving
Mhm.
home way back when. It was we were a meat and potatoes kind of family, right? Mom
Yeah.
made lots of roasts and mashed potatoes and gravy and canned
Mhm.
beans. That was a lot of our meals, or spaghetti, right? Lots of spaghetti. But mom was a spaghetti fiend. She was funny. Um, but yeah, and so I didn't really have an opportunity to try a lot of different foods when I was living at home. So once I moved out on my own, it was like this whole world opened up, right? Of all these different things that were out there. And I started looking at cooking and all that and going, oh, wow, all these different flavors. And then I moved to
Yes.
Edmonton with my best friend. And that was when I found East Indian food. And it was like,
Mm.
oh my God, I was hooked, like immediately hooked. So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of options out there for vegetarianism. But there's what are your? I just kind of want to know what your views are on paleo and keto for yourself. Not well,
Mm.
paleo, I guess, isn't really something. Well, neither is keto. Keto really isn't something you would do either. It's hard to do as a vegetarian, isn't it?
And I know that there are people who do both paleo and keto as
Hmm.
vegetarians. I know it's possible. There are cookbooks written about it. Um, and I can't give a medical opinion on what
No,
I think, but
obviously, for sure.
I think that both are so incredibly restrictive,
Mm,
and I'm not sure if somebody was just thought they were seeing some minimal health benefit, or if they were doing it for weight loss. It seems so very, very restrictive. I don't know.
it's
And
yeah.
I the keto thing gives me really, really great pause, because I think in the beginning, when the keto diet was first becoming popular, it was often viewed as synonymous with gluten free, and it is not synonymous with gluten free. And now the market is flooded with keto products. And well, opinion, you ask. So here's an opinion. They're kind of, I mean, they're kind of junk food. I mean, junk food is junk
Yeah.
food, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and some of them are for sure. I agree.
yeah. I tried the convenience store chain that's prevalent here is called Quick Trip, and Quick Trip is carrying a thing that's sort of like a keto Pop Tart. It also happens to be gluten free, and I tried that this week, and I thought, first, there are better gluten free options, and second,
Mm.
I would rather not have something than to have eaten that. I know many people were very excited about, oh, there's like this gluten free option at the convenience store now, and I'm thinking that convenience store has always had gluten-free options. Like they
Right.
have these fruit cups, and they have these vegetable cups, and they have hard-boiled eggs, and they have cheese sticks. And for people who eat meat, they've got these meat stick things, and like they have this little fresh cooler of and they even have like whole fresh fruit, like they have apples and oranges and bananas. And I've never thought, oh, there's nothing that I can have there.
Hmm.
But I spent the $4 and something on this keto gluten free Pop Tart thing, and the it was yeah.
Is that
it's
what
not
it is?
it's not often that I don't finish a sweet thing, but
Yeah.
I didn't finish that sweet thing,
No,
and
there's some that are just pretty horrid. I do like
yeah.
the my brain just went. It's not
And I'm probably not going to be helpful with the brand name on these things either.
I cannot for the life of me remember the name. I am an affiliate, although I was at one point, and I don't advertise it much because it's I became an affiliate to save a
Hmm.
little bit of money once.
Right, right.
So I can't remember the name of the brand, but it's not Made Good because Made Good is the other one. It's Good
Hmm.
something. Anyways, they're bars, and
Hmm.
they're keto, but they're like there's like four squares in it, and they're like cake basically,
Uh-huh.
except they're kind of a sticky cake. And
Hmm.
it's hard to explain, but I like them. They come in so many different flavors, and
Yes.
they're pretty decent actually for keto. And I mean, they just see for me it was I tried them because they said gluten free on them, and they just happen
Hmm.
to be keto. So that's
Yeah.
how for me. I mean, I don't go looking for keto things. I go looking for gluten free.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
if they just happen to be keto, but a lot of those things I can't eat anyway, or I don't like bringing them into the house because they're high in cholesterol. And my husband has a little bit higher of a cholesterol level than he
Hmm.
should at his age. And so I don't want to bring in a bunch of full fat stuff into my house because it's really not that good for him, right? So I mean there's that balance that they advertise gluten free, but sure, but if it's gluten free and it's still, you know, I don't know.
And I feel that way about I because gluten-free foods come from often, the health food store, or
Mhm.
here, like one of our supermarket chains has the health marketplace, and that's where the gluten-free products are kept. And a cookie is a cookie, whether it's gluten-free,
Yes.
paleo, keto. A cookie is a cookie. So,
Yes. And that's the thing. And a lot of the things that are labeled gluten free are often higher in sugar, higher in
mm.
fat, because they
And
have to
higher
ask,
in cost.
and higher in cost,
Yep.
unfortunately. Yeah. I did the paleo diet for a little while, actually, years
Hmm.
ago now, and I did lose weight. This was before I was diagnosed celiac. I was like,
Oh,
I got
wow.
to do something's wrong with me. So I
Hmm.
figured I'm going to take gluten out because it seemed like whenever I ate a lot of wheat, I got sick. I just didn't feel good and I would swell up and get, inflamed and everything. So I was like, oh, celiac wasn't even on my radar. Um, my aunt was diagnosed celiac, but it didn't click,
Right.
that could be what it was. And so I just figured my friend was doing paleo and she was feeling so much better. She's since gotten celiac diagnosis, by the way. And, but, yeah, and I did paleo and it was like night and day. And it was, well, I'm not going to say go out and do a paleo diet, a
Hmm.
diet's a diet, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like diet culture. I have a real problem with
Mhm.
it. So paleo to me was a way to lower my inflammation, something that was
Mhm.
causing me major issues. And it just happened to be the reason why it worked so well for me is because it got the gluten out of me,
Right.
you know?
Right. I
And
do often wonder when people benefit from switching to a paleo diet, if it's because they're eating less processed food or they're eating less wheat or less grains overall, or
Mhm.
I think it's hard to tell exactly where you're getting the benefit from when you make a
Yes.
huge change all at once.
And then you really mess your system up too, because if you try to get tested for celiac, like I tried after, I couldn't even do
Mhm.
the gluten test. Two and a
Right.
half weeks into it, and I was so sick, I couldn't do it.
Right.
So my diagnosis is based on family history, medical history, you
I
know.
don't know how often we need to say to people, do not eliminate gluten from your diet until you get tested. Like,
Yeah,
um, there's no way I could go back to eating gluten. Like,
no.
no way. I get so ill and so quickly ill. There's no
Mhm.
way that I could make it through a gluten challenge, and um, it's hard. I'm so looking forward to the day when we have adequate testing that doesn't require us to be eating gluten. You know, amongst
I'll do
many,
that testing.
yeah, amongst many of the things that I'm anxious for
Yes.
in the gluten-free world. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I would definitely go back. If I didn't get so ill, I mean, I went into
Mhm.
anaphylactic shock twice. Well,
Oh,
with gluten, and the bottoms of my feet were so swollen I couldn't walk. Like it was just bad. So putting myself through that is not an option.
right.
I have a kid to look after, and a house to
Mhm,
look after, and it's not an option. And I think a lot of people are put in that position, and that's one of the reasons why they do just go gluten free. And it's not so bad up in Canada, I think, because we don't pay for those testing unless you're in Ontario.
mhm.
Ontario was still charging for the celiac testing. They've got a free
Okay.
testing thing right now until next year, I think. But I mean, that's a test that you have to pay for in the United States, isn't it?
It is, and it's not a prohibitively expensive blood panel. I mean, there are certainly blood panels that are more expensive than a celiac panel, but for some reason, it is overwhelmingly difficult to get many doctors to agree to run a celiac panel. And I have no idea why. Again, my opinion, not a medical opinion, if you have anemia that doesn't have a cause or doesn't respond to low levels of iron supplementation, why would your doctor not order a celiac panel?
Mhm.
I was so anemic and needed a blood transfusion, and it was blamed on, oh, well, you're, a woman of childbearing age, or, oh, well, you're vegetarian. Or I know a lot of women who are vegetarians who are not anemic like this. There was obviously something wrong. A celiac panel would have been the best thing ever, but that was not something that was even offered. And well, I know now years later how to strongly advocate for myself in the doctor's
Mhm.
office. But and my story isn't unique in this. There are many people who have struggled to get a simple celiac panel blood test, and that's something that we can all work really hard on. So
Mhm.
advocating and educating our doctors. I feel like I'm often in the doctor's office paying for their time, and I'm educating them about what needs to be done to best manage my chronic disease.
Right.
Um, so it,
And
it's so important that we all stay on top of everything that we can, and that we need to be polite, but also firm in asking for what's necessary.
right, because honestly, and this sounds maybe not as polite as it should, but they work for us.
It's true.
And
We're paying them, and
that's right.
I think that that's often overlooked. And this may be harder for women Maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but I think that we're maybe afraid to stand up for ourselves. And many of us were raised to be nice young ladies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to not, yeah. But this is your health, and especially if you're an American, you're paying a whole lot for that. So,
Right,
uh,
and you're
yeah,
paying
we
for the
shouldn't be afraid
celiac,
to ask. Right, right.
and
We
you pay for
really,
that.
really, really shouldn't be afraid to ask.
No, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I could understand that being an issue up in Canada because most blood tests in general, I think the only blood test that costs is the vitamin D test up here
Wow.
because we we're Canadians. We're just generally vitamin D deficient. That's just, we don't get sun, for as much time as the people in the States do. So,
Mhm.
we're all kind of a little vitamin D deficient. So we should all be taking a supplement.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I've also had the same family doctor for 14 years, right? She's amazing. She sees me, my husband, my son, my mother-in-law, her boyfriend, one of my best friends. So she's amazing, right? And I just have to send her an email and say, hey, this, and this is going on. Do you think I could get a blood test for it? And she'll email me a requisition and I just go get a blood
Mhm.
test. Nothing out of pocket.
That's
And it's,
amazing.
and there's people that complain about Canadian healthcare. It's like, really? I
Mm,
mean, yeah, it sucks in a lot of respects. It's definitely not universal healthcare.
right.
But if I was to compare what we have to what you guys have, I'm not trading,
Well,
you
and
know?
large parts of my diagnosis being delayed were due to me not having insurance, and not because I wasn't willing to pay for it, but because before we had the ACA here, many people who were self-employed struggled to get health insurance from anyone. It wasn't that we didn't want to pay for it, it's that it wasn't offered to us. Um, and in the state where I live, we had something called the state health insurance pool, and it was basically a catastrophic insurance policy. And those catastrophic policies were, for many of us, more than a house payment a month.
Oh
Um,
my
and
gosh.
and I will say I currently pay more than my house payment for my husband and I to have health insurance, and we're happy to pay for that, um, because we don't ever want to be in a situation where,
No.
um, along the path to my celiac diagnosis, a doctor threw her hands in the air and said, the only thing that's left that I can think this could be would be some sort of intestinal cancer. And I mean, the
Jeez.
things that we've been told. But I was left thinking, how will I get the money for more diagnostic testing without insurance? And so I know that's often a delay. And I know in the United States, we often hear it said, that celiac disease is a middle class disease. And I think that's in two parts. I think it's difficult to have the money to seek a diagnosis.
Mm,
And I think it's for many, the cost of maintaining a gluten-free diet is prohibitive.
yeah, that
So,
is. And I think I wish there was more education around how easy it is. Not easy. I shouldn't say easy because it's not easy when you first go gluten free.
right.
To uh, The instinct is to replace things, right?
Yes.
When you go gluten
Yes.
free, and unfortunately, that's when the depression comes in because you end up trying a product and not only are you paying a lot of money for it, but a lot of the times, not so much nowadays, but even back when I first went gluten free,
Mhm.
it was the products weren't as good as they are now.
Right.
So you would
Right.
buy something, pay more money for it, bring it home, and it sucks. And it's
Right.
not what you want, right? Sorry, I'm very blunt, but it'll suck, right? Or it'll have holes all the way through, and we all know who that is. But um, but yeah, so
I was a
and
brand ambassador for that company
oh
before
no, I'm so,
before no, no, before their bread got holy. So
It got
yeah,
religion.
like way back in the day when the namesake of the company was still a presence and was very lovely, and I'm grateful to have found them
Mhm.
at that time. I know certainly I don't buy the holy bread now, because when I spend $7 for a loaf of bread, I need I
You
need to
need the
be able
whole
to
loaf.
actually spread the peanut butter on the bread without
Yeah.
it coming back through
Yes.
the bread. But I mean, how many of those situations have we been in where we've like, I don't know, the only brand of bread that was available at my local supermarket when I was diagnosed was like the shelf stable, vacuum packed. I don't
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. I would have rather
Totally
eaten
agree.
peanut butter off of drywall than whatever that was. You know, they're just, and it was discouraging. Um I often share a post that Shirley from Gluten Free Easily has written about the stages of mourning when it comes to
Mhm.
eliminating gluten. And I think what you said is really true, that there's, you know, some depression that comes in, and there's some social isolation that can be
Oh, yeah.
involved. And I mean, so much of what we all do socially revolves around food.
Mhm.
So I was at an awards ceremony um, last week, and there were no beverages and no food there. And I thought, oh, wow, this is really nice. You know, I didn't have to have a conversation with anybody that was present about my medical history. Like, you know, I didn't have to look at food that I couldn't enjoy.
Yes, eh?
There was no food or no beverages for anybody there. There was a
Anybody.
celebration that didn't have food. This is kind of nice for a change, because we do have to navigate all the time. Everything
Absolutely.
kind of revolves around food, and it can be a challenge socially.
Yeah, it is, and it's frustrating, and it's like I said, it's depressing. It causes anxiety.
Mm,
It's you're constantly being othered because
mm,
of your dietary restrictions, and it's
it's true.
awful.
It's true.
And I think that kind of ties back into where those with choices for the diet can adapt. You know,
Hmm.
um, obviously, a vegetarian is not going to want to eat meat, but
Right.
you know, and every vegetarian is different. I find
Hmm.
too. Some
True.
some are lacto ovo, which means they eat eggs and cheese. Is that correct?
Right.
And
Right.
then there's the ones that still eat fish. I don't
So
know what that
that's pescatarian.
pescatarian. Right, right, right,
Yep.
right. And then
Yep.
of course there's vegan, which is no animal product whatsoever.
Right. So no dairy, no eggs, and no honey. And
Right.
every once in a while, I'll run into somebody who says they're vegan, meaning that they are vegan but have added honey in.
Ah,
So,
okay.
yeah. And then,
Interesting.
you know, for a good long while, I was raw vegan. And there are even varying levels of being raw vegan. People who eat it to 108 degrees, people who eat food
Oh my
to
goodness.
112 degrees, and this all sounds really crazy when it comes falling out of my mouth. And you know, arguing about what the proper temperature is that something can be heated to while still retaining its nutrients. And I will just say that you can heat your food and still have a nutritious meal. So
Right.
while I do, while I do still eat many things that are raw vegan, and you know, I'm studied to be a living foods or a raw vegan chef.
Mhm.
I'm well versed in this area, but raw veganism isn't a sustainable way for most of us to live. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. That's yeah. Ooh, I don't know if I could do that. I mean, I I like I like my cooked vegetables. I like my sauces. I like,
Mm,
those type of things that to me, but I don't know a lot about raw vegan, but to me, I have a hard time thinking about how that could be possible.
mm.
Like mashed
It
potatoes. Oh, mashed potatoes.
Well,
I mean,
it is also an extreme privilege to have the amount of time that's necessary to prepare raw vegan meals, unless you're wanting to, you know, eat carrot and celery sticks all of the time.
yeah.
But all of that to say, I wish that I had known much earlier than I did that raw vegan desserts are gluten-free,
Mm,
and that was a really great place for me to start looking at making desserts that worked well. And I'm still a huge fan of raw vegan desserts. And I
mhm.
would take a raw vegan cheesecake over a real cheesecake any day. So,
You know, and I love the diet cheesecakes. Oh
do
my goodness.
you?
I don't know if they're raw. I don't think they are.
I don't think that they're raw, but I think that they're really good too. I enjoy
They're
those as well.
delicious.
Yeah.
I will take one of those over a regular cheesecake any day because regular cheesecake, I've always been a little bit lactose intolerant.
Hmm.
Um, and so a regular cheesecake, just I'll eat the whole thing. Like I love it so much. I will eat the whole thing to myself. I will hide pieces in the fridge so that they're mine, nobody else's. And so I love them. So when I get a diet cheesecake, they're nice and small.
They
I
are,
got them
aren't
in
they?
four,
Yes,
and I
yes.
still hide them so that I'm the only one that eats them. But they're so good. I mean, I've had the lime one and I've
Hmm.
had the plain one.
I've had
That's
that
those are
one
the only
also.
ones I've tried. And the lime
Well,
one,
going back to our conversation about cashews, raw vegan cheesecakes are made with cashews,
right? Okay.
and
Okay.
super creamy. I'm a big fan of using cashew cream as a substitute for
Mhm.
sour cream, and sometimes even for mayo type concoctions. And oh, there's a recipe on my site for a Swiss cheese spread that's made with cashews, um,
Nice.
and it's so good.
And
So
I love cashew milk. Cashew milk to me
yes.
is so good. Ouch! Forgot about my
Are
nose.
you
Um,
making your own? Are you making your own cashew milk or buying it at the store?
I buy the silk, the unsweetened
Okay.
cashew silk.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite nice, and
Yeah, it's a lovely milk.
it's a great substitute for anything dairy. And I like that
Mhm.
it doesn't have that. Um, I find almond milk to have a flavor that doesn't really. It has an aftertaste. Almond
Yeah,
milk,
I agree. I
cashew
agree.
milk does not, and so it's great on scallop. Excuse me, scallop potatoes. Oh my goodness, it is so good for scallop potatoes. Erin's here. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin. I feel like we need to have a whole chat about potatoes.
Oh, we do. I'm sorry. I am a potato fiend. I love potatoes. And that is why I will never, ever go full keto. I have tried some keto desserts, or not desserts, but keto recipes, and I love them. But I love potatoes more. Yeah, I do. Just weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. There's a comfort level to potatoes for me.
Oh, I think so
So,
too. I think so
and
too.
with a good rich gravy and onion gravy. Oh, sorry. I did eat, and you know what? I had potation one, which happened to have mashed potatoes in it.
I've not had dinner yet, but I feel a potato dish coming on. That's back to our original topic of diets
Yes.
that are choices. Um, before I was diagnosed with celiac, living as a vegetarian, French fries were an option at so many places, and I made a lot of meals out of French fries and pickles.
Mm, those
And then that was another thing that was eliminated because of the shared fryer issue
yeah,
when I was
yeah.
diagnosed. So, um, and that eliminated a whole lot of fast food options as well. So,
Can't do
um,
onion rings, can't do any of that
mhm.
stuff.
No, no. So
Hmm.
I think that maybe the combination of vegetarian and gluten free is maybe more difficult than for meat eaters going gluten free. Um,
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I've
yeah.
only had the vegetarian experience. So
No, I would agree with you because I mean, buying fresh meat from the grocery store, most of them are not. There's no gluten anywhere, at least in
mhm.
Canada. I'm not sure of if it's the same in the States. Canada's labeling laws they seem to be a little bit better than what is in the
I
States.
think that's an understatement. But
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice.
yeah.
I know the labeling laws in the States suck, and you don't know what you're getting. And up here, it has to be plain language. You can't hide behind a fancy name. It's got to be, and barley too. Barley's listed. It's easier. So when you buy a fresh piece of meat from the store, you know that it's just meat because the ingredients have to be listed. If they're not
Mhm.
listed, then you know,
Yeah.
if it's just a
It's
piece of meat.
amazing the difference in labeling of gluten-free foods. I was in a small Brazilian market last week, and every food label of Brazilian product, a made in Brazil product that I picked up in the store was labeled clearly either contains gluten or does not contain gluten.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, which I've not seen labeling quite so clear like that.
Hmm.
Um, and the same was true for lactose, not dairy, but specifically for lactose.
Right.
But then further down the labeling and everything that I looked at just seemed so much clearer.
Mhm.
And I know that to be true from traveling internationally as well. That it's common to find labels in other countries of things are just much more clearly labeled, and labels seem to be more trustworthy than what they are in the U.S.
Right.
So we've
Yeah,
got a lot of work to do about labeling here.
you gotta wonder why too. Like, why when there's so many good examples in the world of how to do it right. And I know that the CFIA, the Canadian Federal,
Hmm.
well, I can't remember what it is. They actually attended a conference with the FDA, I believe, and we're talking about their labeling laws and such. So it's not like the FDA is without good examples.
Right, right.
So
They're
it just
they're good examples, and this isn't a partisan issue. This has gone on through um, political administrations
right.
of both stripes here. So,
Mhm.
it isn't a partisan issue, but it does seem to be a great challenge to get the FDA to even enforce what we currently have. And it kind of seems like right now they're working hard to preemptively say we're not going to hear from you down the road about this
Right.
as well. So
That's
um,
right.
we we do have work to do, but I'll, I'll also say that I think there are people doing really amazing work and really important
Oh yeah.
work. I was on a video conference with my state senator's office and other celiac advocates, also from my state within the last month, and I felt heard, and I felt like um, that they are willing to listen and that we are going to make change happen. But I know that it's going to take more than the handful of us who show up repeatedly. Um, in my state, there were three other advocates, along with myself, who showed up for this opportunity. And I wish that they could have said, "We need to limit this to 10." I wish that there would have been so many of us that
Right.
wanted to show up, that wanted to speak, that wanted to share why this was important. And in fact, I showed up from Alaska. I got up in the middle of the night in Alaska to
Oh wow.
represent my state in the Midwest, because if I don't show up, there isn't someone else.
Right.
Um, and there are lots of us who could show up. There are, more than 3 million of us in America who can show up and who can be standing up for what's important,
Right.
instead of just griping in a Facebook group about how bad
Hmm.
it is. We have to show up and we have to
Yeah.
do the work. So,
And you
um,
don't have to have a big platform to do that
nope,
either.
well, you don't. You don't.
And
In
that's the
fact,
thing.
it could even just be a phone call to your senator's
Yeah.
office, or if you find yourself in the state capitol, set up an appointment. Those people are there to represent you. And in the states, we have things happening that they just need to hear from you on. And it's the same with the FDA. You can drop them a tweet, send them a postcard, write them an email. There are so many ways that I think we just need to increase our presence and let them know that we're here and how much this matters. We don't need to wait until it's their child who's diagnosed with celiac disease and they find out that they can't share birthday cake
Right.
together. we don't need to wait for that to happen. So often we hear, oh, well, this person, they have someone in their family has celiac disease, so they're going to help us. We can just help them understand right now where we're at.
Mhm.
And I know it's uncomfortable. I know, like, never in a million years did I picture that I was going to be somebody going to a senator's office and saying, can you please help with this?
Right.
Or that I was going to be contacting the FDA. I mean, what is that even about, Um, but we're going to have to do this if we're going to catch up with other countries, even if it's our neighbors to the north in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we I think that honestly, I think that those of us up in Canada or in other countries that have the labeling laws we do don't quite understand how difficult it is
Mm,
to live in a country that doesn't have that type of security. Like, I can walk into a grocery store and easily just get my groceries. All I have to do is pick up a can and read it. Doesn't have to say gluten free. It just has to not have
right.
those ingredients: barley, rye, oats, wheat. If it's not gluten free, purity protocol, oats. Um, sorry, shout
Mm,
out for that. But yeah, it really is so easy in comparison for me to walk into a grocery store and fill my list, in comparison to you guys out there who you just really, you kind of have to look for that gluten-free label or buy, single foods like celery, vegetables,
right.
potatoes,
Right. A
like the
lot of
thing.
that, and a lot of focusing on trusted brands.
Right.
And just, I mean, I super, super mindful of that. I don't know how many things Trisha from Gluten Free Watchdog has
Mhm.
currently reported to the FDA for containing gluten ingredients on the label, and then the label also saying gluten free, and very little is being done. So, yeah, it's a whole lot more challenging than that front and back single page "don't eat this" list that the doctor gave
Right.
me when I was diagnosed.
Right.
It's a whole lot more involved than that.
It
And
is definitely. I
yeah.
often, say to my mother-in-law, because we've gone to the States a couple times, and I say to her now, I don't know if I'd be comfortable shopping at a grocery store, like walking down the aisles and picking a can up and going, it says spices. Does that
Yeah,
mean, you
right,
know, what does that
right.
mean here? Because up here it means it's just plain spices. There's nothing
Mhm.
else in there. So it would be tough. When we go to the States, the last time we were there, I don't think I had the celiac diagnosis yet. So it wasn't in my head to be as concerned. I still ordered things that, we went to Disneyland. So
Mm,
Disneyland is pretty good for gluten-free options, but um, I still ordered things that weren't gluten or that were gluten-free, but I wasn't concerned with the cross-contact aspect of it.
yeah,
So, but now, I'd be
yeah.
worried. Yeah, big time.
It it's a lot. I think, trusted brands, and never being afraid to ask a company
Mm.
about what's in their ingredients. And, the testing from Gluten Free Watchdog is also great
Is
for
it?
people that subscribe to our service to be able to read the product reports. I think that's a really good thing as well.
Mhm.
But
Huge.
I think I stick a lot with what I know, what I know, to be safe. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and lots of label reading, like, it never stops here. Like,
Mhm.
you know, and important to read labels every time. Things are rapidly changing, and especially right
Right.
now, with supply chain issues, I think that ingredients are changing, and sometimes things that, like one brand of candy that I had relied on their product line being entirely gluten free now has gluten in some of their candies. Yeah, so
Is it a new product they've brought in, or they've just
no,
changed
oh,
the
no, no,
formulation?
no, some things just now have gluten in them, and it's not like there's a billboard or a whole, shout it from the mountaintops kind of, "Hey, we changed this,"
Right.
um, it doesn't happen like that. So, and I mean, going back to the purity protocol oats, I know that one brand of oats that were purity protocol oats switched to sorted oats, and it wasn't like there was some great big announcement about it.
Mhm.
It just happens. So,
Yeah, we had that up
yeah.
here with the brand that I was buying specifically because they were purity protocol. They don't come in my house anymore,
How
unfortunately.
did you find out that they had
Trisha,
switched? I'll be
Trisha,
darned, from Gluten Free Watchdog.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It was, I think I'm pretty sure that it was her. And then I had reached out to them because the announcement just came out. I think it was on the 5th of May that they weren't using purity protocol anymore because of supply issues.
Okay.
Um, I think that if they had the supply, they would continue, but
Mhm.
and they may switch back in the future. So it depends again on the supply. But so I found out about it on May 5th, but I had already reached out to a bunch of companies and said, "Hey, it's Celiac Awareness Month. Do you have any new products coming out? I would love to showcase them throughout
Mhm.
the month." Right? And I had to message them and say, "I just found out that you no longer use purity protocol. I'm really sorry. I understand why you've switched because they don't have any, they can't make the product without oats, right?" And I said, "But I can't promote a product that doesn't use purity protocol oats because I myself get sick on sorted oats." I said, "I'm
Yeah.
really sorry." They're like, "Totally understand, no problem." And I even went through my Instagram feed and I deleted the posts that I had made with their products because I don't want someone who requires purity protocol oats to come across that and think that they're getting purity protocol when they're not
Right.
and then get sick, right?
Right.
Because I just I can't do that to somebody.
It's a
But
challenge with oat products right now,
yes,
and it's a challenge to find out. Um,
yeah,
for my personal purposes, if a company won't quickly tell me that they're using purity protocol oats, I make the assumption that they're not,
yeah,
and I just have to move on
yeah.
to something else. So,
It
um,
doesn't make sense to me for them not to announce that from the rooftops
right,
because,
right,
that is an extra safety net for those of us that
mhm,
can eat oats.
mhm,
And because I mean, not all of us can, but I
right,
find even with purity protocol oats that if I eat them too many days in a row, I start to feel a little bit of the brain fog, a little bit of the inflammation.
mm,
So, and I'm sure it's the Avenin. It's got to be because that seems to be what affects people, right?
mm. Yeah, I
So,
mean, Avenin resistance is yet another one of those places and that we're lacking in celiac knowledge. There just doesn't seem to be enough research done about Avenin resistance, and I just think um, from the number of people I know with celiac disease, how many of them avoid all oats.
mhm.
I think we have a lot to learn in that area.
It's another one of those comfort levels too, right? I mean, if in the past they've gotten sick
Yeah.
from them, like I got sick from certified gluten-free oats once, and
Mm.
there's not touching them anymore. So,
Right. Well, and I think that there is an assumption that a certified gluten-free oat is a purity protocol oat,
yeah,
and that's certainly not the case.
no,
Oat products containing sorted oats are being certified now, and that's a very, very challenging
right.
situation, and it's difficult to explain. I stopped at a dedicated gluten-free bakery while out of town last week, and I asked about their oats, and the brand that they mentioned is not certified, and it's sorted oats for absolutely certain. And that's a tough decision to make because we're already so limited, and then you think, well, the place, is it really dedicated gluten free, or is it now just sorta gluten free because they're
Right,
using sorted oats? And do I just avoid the product that has oats in it here, or should I avoid everything in their bakery because they're using sorted oats? And, we know that oats are notoriously difficult to accurately test, that it's hard to find hot spots in oat containing products like Cheerios, like
Right.
people with celiac disease who tolerate oats, who are not avenine resistant or avenine intolerant. Um, that they have safely eaten purity protocol oats for years, then they try to eat Cheerios and they eat 3 boxes of them and they're fine. And the fourth box they get sick from. I mean, there's definitely something going on there.
Yeah.
And, when that situation first came out, and a handful of us were working diligently collecting illness reports, and it's a stack of people who got sick from eating those that tolerate oats. So there's like something going on there, but it just seems to be really difficult to catch it, and it doesn't seem to be problematic enough that food suppliers want to make a change. So.
Right. And that's the biggest issue, right? They're going to,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's a business and they're going to do what's best for the business, not necessarily what's best for the consumer.
Well,
So,
I'm a
which,
business owner, and I I
yeah,
disagree with the tactic. So I
I agree. I agree. I
I
mean, and
always want to do what's absolutely best for my customers, and when I do that to the best of my ability, I also get to make a living. So I
that's
know
right.
that I know that there's a way, and I know that some of these companies could have been big heroes to many, many farmers by choosing um, to use them as purity protocol farmers. I know that there's such a great way that this could have happened and everybody could have won in this situation. But the easy button isn't the way that I want to run my business. And I am here to support the gluten free businesses who follow
Yeah,
suit with that.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's the same. I mean, with Mike owns his own business, obviously not a gluten-free business. Well, I guess it is kind of. But anyways, but yeah, and he's the same way where, he does what's best for everybody because he wants
Hmm.
he wants that callback. He wants
That's
people
right.
to keep using him, right? And
That's right.
and there's this integrity that seems to not exist in some of these larger corporations, where it is just all about money. I'm going to
Yeah.
quickly do a side here. Stacy's here. That's Audrey's mom, Chef Audrey B. Audrey's
Hi.
with her too. Audrey just said that,
Yay.
talking about oats, she says this is why she never uses oats for any of her baked items she sells. And that is,
Fantastic.
yes.
That's where I feel safest buying
Mm,
gluten-free products when there aren't oats. Even though I consume Purity Protocol oats, I just feel safest right now. Oh, and for
yeah,
sure, I wish that those who were selling gluten-free products that contain oats, if they would just put a simple sign up that tells us where their oats come from.
that's right. And that was something I did because I did farmers markets for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I sold monster cookies, I used
Mm-hmm.
oats, but I always use the Only Oats brand, which is Purity
Mm-hmm.
Protocol because they use the Avena oats.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a note right up there, Purity Protocol oats from, and
Yes.
and it made a difference. Like I always sold out of my monster cookies. Always, always,
Yes.
always. So I think that's a really great thing, Audrey, that you do that for the community as well.
I agree. That's awesome.
hmm But yeah, I mean, dietary dietary issues they can be very complicated, and when you add in a medically necessary diet to a choice,
Right.
to a chosen diet, it's it's just so complicated sometimes.
I
Okay,
do think that maybe it gave me I don't want to say an advantage. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here, but maybe it gave me a little bit of knowledge before I was diagnosed with celiac to know um, how it was going to be, though. Like
right,
I had already had to ask
hindsight.
people to, yeah, I had already dealt with some teasing or poking fun about the way that I eat. So I already knew that that was something that happens. And I had dealt, already with limited options.
Mhm.
I think anybody who's vegetarian or vegan is probably familiar with hoping for the non-salad entree, and if it's there, it's like it's one
Yes,
option and you just take it. Um,
right.
I will say that was almost always a pasta dish, uh,
Mm.
which even eliminated a further choice, needing to eliminate
Yeah,
gluten.
yeah.
But I do think it's helpful to have had the knowledge of knowing what it's like to have to say to somebody, "Oh, I don't eat that," um, and
Yeah.
I have to be a whole lot firmer now about what I do and don't eat than when it was, a choice. But it's good to have that background.
Yeah, I guess it would. That would kind of prepare you
And
for that.
interestingly enough, we all talk about this all the time about, how we don't like having to ask for it. And, we're always, you have to lay everything out on the line. And I
Yeah.
think some of us are afraid to be as insistent as we need to be. But I would bet that every one of us has dined out with a picky eater
Yeah.
who doesn't who doesn't mind at all putting their
Mhm.
foot down and being insistent about something that is no more than a frivolous choice of that they don't like something. So
Yeah.
they are not hesitant or reluctant in stating what their needs are, and we should be just as firm.
That's right. And it's true. It's true. And I think that a lot of us just feel like a burden really at the dinner table kind of thing.
True.
And it's an awful feeling to have, especially in a social situation like that, because
Mm,
food, like you were saying, food is so social. Food,
yes.
food is intertwined in every social
Mm,
interaction we have, right?
yeah,
And
it's really true.
it's I don't eat out very often, especially now. But even before like pre-pandemic, it's very hard for me to eat out because in our area we don't have a lot of we have one gluten-free restaurant, completely gluten-free. And as nice as it is to have them as an option when I want to not cook, I can cook just as good at home
Hmm.
as they can in their restaurant. And so it to me it's difficult to um, justify it, I guess.
Right.
So
Right.
if they were like a different culture or something, then something that I
Yeah.
don't cook at home, it'd be different.
Right. Right.
So, but the one that's around us is more like a home cooked kind of meal type of thing,
Hmm.
right? And so, but the restaurants that are in our area that used to be able to um, give me safe food, I got glutened the last time I ate at one of them, and it was like, you
Yeah.
know what? And I'm one of those people where 10 minutes after I eat it,
Yeah.
I am sick. And I'm talking sick.
Yeah.
It's a I need to leave now, please, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so I know quite quickly. Oh, excuse me, I got the hiccups.
Mm. Well, and that's a whole other. I mean, you've had to share your medical history in effect in order to order a hopefully safe meal,
Mhm.
and then you might be put in a position where you've gotten sick from the meal. And I think about like for me, work things are particularly difficult. I don't want to have to talk about my need for different food. And the last time I was at a work event, a catered event, my meal didn't come, didn't come, didn't come. And the people at the table I was with were oh so polite. I mean, we are firmly Midwest nice here. And
Mhm.
everyone was refusing to start eating until my meal came.
Oh,
And
wow.
so then I felt guilty for everybody's food getting cold while they waited for my food. And then I worried that my food hadn't been properly taken care of. And what if I eat this and then I get sick and I have to leave the event that I'm here for? And yeah, it's a lot. Um, but it's with so much grace that so many people in the celiac community handle all of this every day. I mean,
Mhm.
it is a lot, but it's astounding when you look at that we've all found ways to somehow manage it, that we found ways to continue to travel, that we found ways to continue to celebrate. But yeah,
Right.
it's a lot. It's a
It
lot.
is.
We carry a lot with us.
Yeah. A lot of people who aren't in the community just don't understand
Mm,
how difficult it really is. And that kind of circles back again to the difference between a choice and a necessity,
mhm. True.
and some people just, I don't want to keep saying some people, but it's anyone who isn't within the community that requires a gluten-free diet for medical reasons will not have the same understanding
Mm,
as those of us in the community. And that's where the fad diet part of it really um, is a disservice to the
yeah.
gluten-free community
I do
because
think it's hard to, like, order a safe gluten-free pizza, and the person that they served before ordered a beer to go with their pizza,
yes,
or
yeah,
said, "Oh, well, the croutons on the salad are fine," you know,
right,
or,
exactly. It
yeah,
makes the same.
it's hard, and I certainly sympathize with those who, work in the food service industry because
Mhm.
they get a mixed message as well.
Absolutely,
And
mixed
also
feelings.
maybe even sometimes from within the celiac community, I mean,
Yeah,
there are people who really do, struggle with adhering to the gluten-free diet and,
mhm.
who yeah, who maybe don't get as rapidly sick as you and I do, and so, um,
Yes,
I mean, I
that's
I
part
will
of it.
say that in some ways, I think that that is a blessing for me because
Yes,
there's 0 temptation to stray from a gluten-free
yeah,
diet. I don't enjoy feeling sick like that, and then, continuing to be sick for days afterwards. It's awful,
mhm.
but
It
for
is, it's
somebody
horrible.
who, doesn't react, quickly or who doesn't have a severe reaction, it must be really challenging to stick with the diet.
I guess, yeah. I can't speak for them because
Right,
I
same.
get so ill, I can't say, "Well, I
Right,
would still stick with it," because I don't know that I would.
right,
I would like to think that I would, because of the possible ramifications of not sticking with a gluten-free diet, but, yeah, it's hard to say how we would
yeah, it
what we
really
would do.
is.
It really is, but it's, I think language matters in a lot of
Mm,
instances too, though. It's something I had written on my I had done a little series of stories on Instagram recently during this month about how language matters, like stating severe celiac rather than just
mhm,
celiac. There's
celiac,
no Yeah, there's no variance of
right,
celiac. It is celiac or it's not,
right,
and there's severity of symptoms, but not the disease itself. And it's othering people who don't have symptoms is what it's doing. And they feel kind of left out in a way, because they don't have the reactions that other people do. So they're not taken as seriously as those who do get really sick. So
right.
there's that aspect of it. And then there's also like the language regarding cross contact, cross contamination,
Mhm,
allergy, calling it an allergy rather than calling it what it is.
right.
And I understand the mindset of those with celiac who say they have an allergy. I get that because allergy, you know, restaurants hear that.
I'm guilty of that in a restaurant.
I did
Uh,
it in the past as well. I did.
yeah, a restaurant near us, puts this red alert, allergy alert, and, they have no other language for it, but it, like, causes everything in the kitchen to pause, somebody takes that
Mhm.
order, and they take really good care of it, so I don't hesitate to use that language there, but I do always wish for, um, a better understanding,
Yeah.
in the restaurant industry, but especially right now when so many are dealing with staffing and,
Oh, for sure. It
I
changes
think
everything.
I think that we're gonna have to continue at doing a lot of educating on our own,
Well,
and
right
lots and
now,
lots of double checking.
yeah, and especially right now because what they could do for us before, they may not be able to do now because
This
of
is really,
that.
really true.
And
Yeah.
so when you go to a restaurant now, you need to double check. Even though they're a trusted restaurant, they've done good for you before in the past, you don't know, you know. I'm guessing that's John.
It is. It is. It's my favorite photo. Do you want to poke your head in? Can you say hi?
Hi.
Oh, they can't see you. You have to come
Hello,
further.
John. I can't see you, but hello.
There we go.
There's
Hi.
John. Hi.
But
So
yeah,
we have a late work day today. So we still have work to go do this evening. So
and you have to eat as well.
we do. We haven't had dinner yet. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, we should cut this short. We're actually an hour and 20
Michelle,
minutes
thank
in.
you so much for doing this, and thank you for everything you do for our community. I
Thank
mean,
you so
girl,
much.
you have had a struggle of all struggles, and you show up all the same. Like you've
I
had every
try.
reason to stop showing up for our community and to just focus on yourself, and here you are. So proud of you, and we're so lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a wonderful community to be a part of. I mean,
I agree. I
the
agree.
support.
Truly saved my life. I can't say that often enough about gluten-free bloggers that I think I'd probably still be sick and I'd probably still be looking for answers had I
Mhm.
not found this community of people. And I think I would have given up on, I mean, I've been a wanderer my whole life, and I think I would have given up on traveling had I not found the support and encouragement of people who travel who are gluten-free and people who
Yeah,
are just living life, even with the challenges that this brings about. So yeah,
yeah,
we're really lucky to have our community.
we really are. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you again for joining me,
Yeah.
Johnna. And
Thanks, Michelle.
this chat is going to be available on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch it on all of those things. And we're going to have to chat again sometime soon.
I'd love to.
All right,
Okay,
well, you
take
take
care,
care.
Michelle. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for coming.